Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a week since Lewis Prey update has dropped, and we even received our very first hotfix. You know, I was actually waiting on this before covering our new weapons, as every single one of them has bugs. The Tenet Plinx included, but there are no patch notes about this weapon in yesterday's hotfix, so I presume for the time being it will remain as is. What are those bugs? Let's get that out of the way very quickly. The Tenet Plinx currently benefits from Synth Charge on its Altfire, multiplying all the damage by 3. This is the exact same situation Epitaph was once in, and even though this survived the most recent hotfix, expect it to get patched in the near future. Since Charge makes the weapon strong enough that you can just build for Corrosive and not care at all in the world whether enemies have armor or not, you will always be able to kill them. Even in Endurance, a full stripped enemy will still get one shot by the AoE of a Corrosive Plinx. This will not be the case once the Charge is patched, so keep your polarities available for other build options. The build will lose about 2 to 2.5 times its total damage scaling. For primary fire, it is a pure crit stick that sucks at hybrid builds or status, so treat it as a pure heat semi-auto single target pistol. You can build it for other elements, but we're going to be focusing on the Altfire today. The Tenet Plinx has a suck on the AoE Altfire, but this suck is not affected by blast radius mods like Primed Fulmination. It only has about 8 meter range on the suck. The Tenet Plinx also has multiplicative gun CO on the main hit of the Altfire, not the AoE, not the primary fire mode, just the direct hit. Useless for trash fodder cleaning purposes, but if you really like this weapon, that can make it useful for killing Acolytes, or if you so choose, Demolists. This Tenet version also has a perk besides just being an AoE Altfire not found on the original. It's the Tenno space program all over again. When the AoE explodes, it launches enemies outwards, so anything not killed by the explosion that survives will be annoying to finish off unless you applied statuses to them. The only statuses that scale well even when they get yeeted are Toxin and Slash, as well as Heats. Slash ignores armor, which is Pog, but there's a reason why I will not use Slash Plinx that we'll get into later. The remaining useful elements are Heat, Gas, and Electric. Gas and Electric want grouping. Oh, and here's another thing. The Yeet scales with multi-shot, aka if you don't use grouping, it gets very difficult to kill things consistently with the Altfire. It does not proc status well, so treat it as a raw damage weapon against full stripped enemies. Today's video is going to be focusing on a raw damage Corrosive Plinx setup as well as a pure electric Plinx with some afterthoughts on other builds. But there's more to this video than just that. The Yeet from Plinx's Altfire is actually stronger than the sucking strength of several abilities, so let's quickly go over what works and what doesn't work with Plinx's Altfire if you need to keep them grouped up. Yareli's buffed 4, which now doesn't explode until you tap it again, or runs out of duration, has a much stronger suck than Plinx's Altfire and thus works perfectly. You can now also mod casting speed on her, because her 4 will no longer end prematurely to explode sooner like before, which would also shorten the suck duration and thus kill potential on a Riptide DPS build. Larva Helminth also overpowers the Yeet from Plinx, though I would only recommend running this on a lower duration build due to the buggy issues with Larva if it pulls something stuck behind a wall. Vazarin's Void Snare works, just keep in mind it only has an 8 meter suck radius, and you aren't killing anything until you actually shoot your Plinx. Varbin's Tornado is basically Yareli's 4 on steroids, and obviously works. Zephyr's Tornado is still stronger than Plinx's Yeet, however you can drag them towards walls or other surfaces temporarily with a shot. Bonus points for the Tornadoes magnifying Plinx's damage to guarantee they die. What else did you expect? It's Zephyr. Any full strip electric build generally will kill because of the chaining electric dot exploding on hit before they are yeeted, which is the niche of our electric builds today. Another top tier choice though is Frost. His Avalanche completely ignores Plinx's Yeet, but you can still gather enemies with any grouping ability of your choice. Cold Horizon alone is sus, because enemies start standing up mid-suck now instead of staying ragdoll, then it only lasts 2 seconds, so if they don't die, you are forced to cast again. Because, well, shooting them after Cold expires, you'll find their body alive and well, 1 tile set over. Air Burst works significantly better than Cold Horizon, but is still sus because it only lasts 2 seconds and you have to cast it against the surface. Things that don't work? Condemn is ignored. Have you ever seen Harrow chains this long before? Ensnare also doesn't work. Meg's Magnetize also doesn't work. Gauss's Maw Crash also doesn't work. That's all I tested for the video, feel free to try other options if you found something I haven't mentioned. And Impact Plinx for Hemorrhage Slash, here's what a build for that looks like. The weapon reaches 53.3% impact weight on the AoE with Saxum Spittle. That's the only thing you can't see here because I don't have an impact progenitor. As you can see, we have no mod slots left to mod more impact or status. We need the Bane for double dip slash, we obviously need Hemorrhage, and we also need both crit mods. We also need multi-shot, because not only is this a damage increase, but it makes our slash procs more consistent by splitting the hits up. Hornet Strike is also mandatory because Gun CO does not work on the AoE of the Altfire. So what is the final result? I'm going to assume max galvanized multi-shot stacks, which is 3.3 multi-shot. I'm rounding it to 3.0 multi-shot to make things easier. The odds of proccing at least one AoE slash per trigger pull are the odds of proccing a status effect, times the odd of it being impact, times the hemorrhage conversion ratio, and then factoring in multi-shot. This is basically the opposite of what are your odds of not proccing slash at all, which is just 1 minus the odds of slash per multi-shot cubed, because we take 3 multi-shot. So our final equation is 1 minus the total of 0.5 status chance, 50%, times 0.533 impact weight, 53.3%, and a 0.7 hemorrhage conversion, 70%, and then cubing everything to account for multi-shot. The final number is 0.538. So if you have 3.0 multi-shot, this build has a 53.8% chance to fail proccing slash on a given enemy with the Altfire AoE. Since we actually have 3.3 multi-shot and not 3.0, then I'm gonna round this to approximately 50% odds. What does this mean? If there are 20 enemies, shooting the AoE will only slash 10 of them to death, and 10 live. The next time you shoot, 5 of the 10 will get slashed and die, leaving 5 alive. Basically, you have to shoot 3 times to clear a crowd, and with the reload delay of the Plinx, this just isn't sustainable. Your raw damage is also garbage because you invested everything into slashing, so you have no corrosive and no extra radiation to deal with armor. And you know what does kill in a single shot against armored enemies at base steel path? A raw corrosive crit build. With how inconsistent the slash is on this weapon, don't even think about bringing a hemorrhage setup into endurance and justifying the armor ignore that way. Let's look at some actual Plinx builds now. Based off of the Yeet problems I showed you, an electric build requires them to be grouped up no matter what, even after the explosion. Naturally, grouping abilities gather enemies tight, which significantly increases the chaining potential of the dot, and with how hard this Altfire hits on raw damage, and how grouping for dot builds is forced, there is no point building gas since it doesn't scale off elementals. This is what a typical electric progenitor Plinx build looks like. We have our standard multi-shot, base damage, crits, banes for double dipping the dots for 2.4 times more damage, and an electric mod. The weapon reload delay is ridiculously slow, and reload speed both affects the reload itself and the delay, so I would strongly recommend slotting primed quick draw because the weapon is already strong enough, especially on a full strip build. Prime slip magazine is here because the Altfire scales damage multiplicatively off the magazine size. So increasing magazine by 55% is a literal 55% final damage multiplier. Merciless because you want to speed up the reload. Now, I'm going to be running this setup on Yareli today, which requires a few tweaks to the Plinx. Her passive actually lets the weapon reach 200% crit chance for guaranteed oranges if I run Creeping Bullseye, which is easily negated by Arcane Velocity. For a weapon that takes so long to shoot again, I'm perfectly fine with having just plus 100% fire rate instead of plus 120, in exchange for knowing I always hit oranges instead of the rare yellow, which makes me lose almost half my damage. It's also a full strip build, so a lot of the time we are overkilling, and thus I actually dropped a Hornet Strike for Augur Impact, because I needed one more Augur mod so that Yareli could shield gate properly with a single cast of her 4. If you want to run Synth Charge, it currently replaces primed Slit Magazine. Yareli's build. It's a shield gate setup, where casting your 4 regenerates all shields so long as you have a Decay Dragon Key equipped. Her 4 costs 50 to cast, including the Augur mod on our Plinx and Breed for Spite, we have 230% energy to shield conversion. So casting our 4 regenerates 115 shields, which is just enough to cover her 113 cap. You can honestly subsume Terrify over her 3 instead. This is just based off of my old Riptide Nuke build, as her 1 now has a damage vulnerability debuff on it. Now that you can cast into your 4 if you want, but it really shouldn't matter because we're full stripping and Plinx hit so hard. We're running 139 strength, which passes the 167 requirement to full strip with Matarai as long as sling strength is active. This also lets us bring plus 50% casting speed through power transfer to make her 4 faster. As I mentioned, casting speed is beneficial on Yareli now, since her 4 no longer ends prematurely to shorten the suck. I've also modded negative duration so that her 4 naturally explodes without us having to manually uncast it. That's a small quality of life aspect you'll come to notice while playing this build. 47% is still enough for a 4.7 seconds Riptide duration, which easily lets you suck them, strip, and DPS. Terrify itself lasts 11.6 seconds on this build, so you really don't care about duration. Too low though is bad. 235 range maximizes the grab potential of her 4, which reaches out to 35 meters on this build, and because the cast no longer prematurely explodes, it will actually reach out to 35 meters. However, it does have line of sight checks, so keep that in mind. Prime sure-footed as always, arcane velocity for bonus fire rate, plus 100% because we're running creeping bullseye, and energized to keep ourselves topped up. Equilibrium is handy too, with a panzer for extra health orbs via the Synset energy. Panzer build looks like this, same as always, because there isn't really much to say here besides spreading quills to buff with damage, which isn't that necessary because of how hard Plinx hits on full strip. Martyr to keep you alive, Devolution for infinite cat lives, a radar, and a vacuum. The thing does in fact destroy Acolytes, and it's up to you whether or not you want to run a gun CO instead of Hornet Strike, but for that situation, I would also recommend bringing a Vastalok. Without it, it takes 2, maybe 3 Altfire shots to kill them through armor. If you strip it all off with Shattering Impact, sometimes the Plinx can even kill them in a single hit. But perhaps the biggest winner for Plinx today is Harrow. I imagine Gauss would work well too, but see, this video is getting pretty long, so I'll leave that up to you. Harrow brings a ton of crit chance, crowd control, massive amounts of fire rate, and most importantly, reload speed, and infinite energy to spam his kit. This build reaches 299 strength with Molt augmented for plus 60% and Matarai, yes Matarai again, both for cast speed on his annoying 4 and the plus 40% strength. This snapshots onto his 2 on recasts for plus 104.7 fire rate and plus 209.3% reload speed. The Plinx will start reloading at the same moment the AoE explodes. How's that for a change? I've chosen Airburst to maintain the ragdoll state for electric proc scaling, but also because it avoids the physics issue with Coil Horizon ever since this mainline, which Plinx magnifies because anything it can't kill, it yeets. And Coil Horizon only lasts 2 seconds, which means shooting twice is a no-no. 220 range means we get 17.6 meters suck on Airburst, which is decent enough to work. Your 3 gives you infinite energy, so you can spam Airburst as much as you want. Covenant lasts 9.3 seconds invuln on this build, which is enough to easily deal with an Acolyte, as well as reset all of your buffs. It also gives you a ton of crits, and if Molt efficiency is active, the iframes go up to 11.46 seconds. Rolling guard for when your shields break, and adaptation to make your shields tankier, since Harrow is all about his shields. You also need them to give good duration to your 2, and if we have one Augur mod on this build today instead of Stretch because it lets us bypass the one drawback on Harrow's shield regen strat. I'm using Rakta Dagger today, which restores shields based off of our damage dealt to enemies afflicted with radiation. But it only restores shields if my shields aren't empty, so casting Airburst with an Augur mod lets me bypass the shield regen delay and immediately start swinging Rakta to regenerate my other shields. This Rakta is not focused around damage. In fact, it's all about inflicting radiation procs as fast as possible and pounding away to convert to shields, since the main limitation is proccing radiation to start with. Melees do a ton of damage already, so this build is more than enough. True Punishment lets me build combos super quickly alongside Quickening, which scales Sweeping Wound so I go well over 100% status instantly. With this much radiation on the build, it only takes a few swings to instantly max 3000 shields for my 2, as well as just a survivability tool for adaptation. Panzer build for spreading viral and utility is the same as before. Please refer to the timestamps in the description for it. So how about a raw Corrosive build? Well, this can work with whatever loadout you want. It's a lot more general because it doesn't require grouping since you are trying to kill with the main AoE, and not any dots created by it. Just keep in mind this build does not scale into endurance. Grouping still helps to hit more enemies at once, but this means the frame doesn't matter, so I'm just gonna show you the weapon build for this. The only thing that changes is running pathogen rounds instead of convulsion. Voila! Corrosive damage. If you took a toxin progenitor, well, just run the opposite element here. If you took a magnetic progenitor, that works too, but now you have to mod 2 slots to make corrosive. You're gonna have to drop either Prime Quick Draw if you can source reload from the frame buffs, or Prime Slip Magazine if you already have enough damage from frame buffs. So I'm gonna stick with my electric progenitor. In the case you want to use this to kill Demolists or Acolytes specifically, which I don't know, there are way better ways to do this, but you might find it fun. You just build pure viral and bring a Vastalok or armor strip ability that works against your target. For that case, I would recommend a toxin progenitor so you can either pick corrosive or viral setups. Otherwise, on an electric progenitor, once again you have to drop either Prime Slip or Primed Quick Draw. I would also recommend running Gun CO, because the entire reason why you're even using this to kill Acolytes or Demolists is for single target damage, and the direct hit of the AoE has multiplicative Gun CO. That's it for the Tenet Plinx builds today. Hopefully you'll be able to make something you enjoy out of this weapon. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering the Lewis Prey update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You won't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.